Wow, are we about to have a conversation? Didn't this episode make you feel weird, like it didn't make sense? And that's because of the unfortunate behind-the-scenes drama, which I've reported to you, and as I've told you, has not been resolved. So I think this is why Season 2 ended this way. Some Star Wars fans, I've always said that the Star Wars people who work on the films are way too mean and aggressive against the people who criticize them. But now, having dealt with some of those people myself, what a brutal corner of the Star Wars fandom exists. But still, you must control yourself. You just can't do that. Just like Tom Cruise can't, as justified as you might be, you just can't sink that low. One of my favorite Lisa Vanderpump quotes is, "Don't roll around in the mud with pigs. You'll just get dirty," and they love it. I think that's something everybody should remember when dealing on social media. So some people will argue that this is what they planned all along, but then why did it feel so wrong? It felt nonsensical. So we're going to break all of this down. So get ready. This is a juicy conversation. And I have chapter times, because I know some of you don't like drama, so you can go and watch parts of this review that you like. So parts of this episode I really liked. The obvious ones, we're going to talk about Luke Skywalker, although even there I was frustrated. But I thought elements of that were amazing. But again, I think that everybody's kind of like, what? Like, it just feels off, and I think that's another reason it hasn't trended this morning. I mean, Luke Skywalker coming back should trend. Why would it not be top 10 on Twitter? It's so weird. I think because everybody is like, I don't know how to feel about this. I think it's like a giant pause in the fandom. I felt that in The Force, boy. Aside from Peyton Reed's lackluster directing, oh my God, how do you make a Darksaber versus Beskar steel fight not that exciting? Or Luke in a hallway, it was bad directing. It was really bad directing. But anyway, I mean, we've been telling Disney this guy can't direct, and they keep hiring him. All right, so anyway, I'm rooting for Peyton Reed to show us he can direct for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I would love to be surprised and see him turn a corner. So anyway, the developments here, and there were plenty, felt less organic again and more business driven, and driven in a direction that I think not just myself, but many of us fans don't want to see them going. But before we talk about that stuff too, let's focus on the awesomeness, because to be fair, there was some cool stuff here. So who could forget Darth Vader's iconic hallway fight in Rogue One, right? I loved it. I loved the whole movie, but that just was phenomenal. And I think it was really nice that now his son, Luke Skywalker, has his own hallway fight. Everybody gets a hallway fight. I don't know why hallway fights have become like a badge of honor. Remember they kept giving them to Daredevil, and they were always really cool too. I guess because you're fighting in a contained space or something, right? But I'm very glad to see that they both have one. And I thought that was just really neat. I mean, it put a smile on my face to see him emerge at the elevator to open, like, ding! Luke Skywalker, bitches! I thought that was just fantastic. But again, it was not a very well-directed hallway fight sequence, but I will take what I got. I still like seeing his, one-gloved hand using the Force. I don't know why he only crushed the last Dark Trooper. I was like, crush more of them. I love it. I'm like, baby, I'm like Grogu. I'm like, do more. But yeah, so it was a little frustrating. Now, was I super disappointed when Luke Skywalker pulled back his hood and it wasn't Sebastian Stan? You bet I was. Now, yes, I was impressed with CGI Mark Hamill, right? But because it's CGI Mark Hamill, that means who knows how long it will be before we see Grogu again, because CGI Mark Hamill is expensive. I mean, it's fine for one scene, but you could see even in that one scene, he was artfully cut out of the frame in a lot of the shots because they didn't want to pay for it. And why during the entire fight, he had his hood over his face. I was like, Sebastian Stan, did you just double down on Disney Plus? And he didn't. Because how can you have an entire series focusing on Luke and Grogu, which is clearly what we want now, right? I'm like, okay, where's this show? I would love to see Grogu training with Luke. And on that note, for Luke Skywalker to be redeemed as a character after he was totally dragged through the mud. Mud's a bit of a theme, I guess, this review, with the Disney trilogy, right? It would be so wonderful to do that. Now you might be like, oh man, wouldn't Mark Hamill then miss out on that if that was done? Because Mark Hamill was, credited here as playing Luke Skywalker. But they could do flashbacks, just like that's the rumor they're going to do at the upcoming Lando show. So they can use both Billy D. Williams and Donald Glover. Why not do it for Luke too? I'm sure we'll all allow it. We won't be like, that's like that show. We'll be like, fantastic. This is a great way to, bring the two generations together and give everybody what they want. Because I think that Luke Skywalker does need to be redeemed after how he was treated over the last few films. And now I don't see, I don't know, but now that they've introduced CGI Luke Skywalker, I don't know how you could switch to Sebastian Stan. Even Mark Hamill says Sebastian Stan looks like him when he played Luke Skywalker. It's such a missed opportunity. He's on the Disney payroll. They have Sebastian Stan's number. All right, so I also feel that there was a big missed opportunity not to have Luke tell Grogu that he reminds him of a dear friend. I mean, it's the whatever that species is called in the room. I can't believe that wasn't referenced. I felt it was kind of disrespectful to Yoda, in fact. But we're talking about things that I loved. And I also loved, this is gonna annoy some of you, but I loved having an all-female team take the bridge. Like when they came out onto the cruiser, I was like, it's all women. Wow, this is amazing. I thought it was fantastic. And on that note, remember how Mercedes Varnado, aka Sasha Banks, said she wasn't coming back this season and it made a bunch of headlines? Well, clearly she was lying. And I don't like calling it lying. Let's just say she was protecting the product and herself, her own career, which is a totally valid reason to say untruths when you're being asked questions. And put a pin in that because that's going to come into play a little bit later in this discussion with another actor character, obviously. Now, they fought their way through Moff Gideon's cruiser, I felt, very convincingly. I loved when Cara Dune was trying to make her gun work and was banging on the ground like a TV or something. I thought that was great. I thought it was very convincing. They weren't like, it wasn't, you felt like, I felt like I could join them and we could effectively do this. I'd be like, me too, hand me a blaster. I thought that was so cool. And Ming-Na Wen looked particularly badass. I was like, wow, maybe you guys who were always talking about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. might have been on to something because she seemed really cool here. And she had a great moment again at the end credits scene when she sat in the arm of Boba Fett's new throne, which of course once belonged to Jabba the Hutt, and she was quenching her thirst. And speaking of women, it was also fantastic to go from having a throne that had a woman historically chained to it, and this time Fennec freed the new version herself. I thought that was great. A woman freed a woman. And then also, at the end, now you had a woman standing next to the throne instead of being chained to it as second in command. It made me very happy. I know that annoys some of you, but this is why representation matters. I mean, I'm happy for some, I don't know. I guess for some of you, if it doesn't bother you, well, I'm happy you're so content in life, but everybody really likes representation. And so I just thought that was phenomenal. Here are some smaller things that I also really liked. I also loved seeing the mechanics of how TIE fighters launch, how they're kind of like brought in on like that lever, right? I thought that was cool. And they drop down. I was like, that was pretty cool. But who made that stupid tunnel for them to come out of? I was like, this is just an accident waiting to happen. But that's so often the case with the Empire. Who built this? It seems so stupid. And then also, I liked Bo-Katan's reference to dealing with clones, because she said, I heard your voice all the time. I didn't even think of that until she said it. It must have been so freaky for her to be like, that's not Captain Rex in there. That's not, but she knew, I guess she hears the same voice all the time, right? It never really occurred to me when I was watching the animated show either. I guess because Captain Rex is usually the only one that speaks, and I didn't like the Bad Batch episode, so I erased it from my mind. But that was really interesting. So where is Captain Rex? Let's bring these clones to the live action finally. Every other character from the animated show is coming over, the animated series. Maybe on the Ahsoka show, since she and Rex were so close. I mean, Tamura Morrison, that would make him awfully busy. But why not? He's already here. I want to see it. And I think many of you do too. I came to really love Captain Rex myself, and I understand why so many of you are such strong fans. But that was cool. I liked that quite a bit. All right, now let's talk about the Book of Boba Fett before we talk. And then first we're going to talk about the behind the scenes drama and what's going on, like potentially going forward. And then we'll go through the episode itself. All right, so since the title was revealed in Mando font, the Book of Boba Fett, and as many of you were pointing out, the Mandalorian is told in chapters, so a book makes sense that they're going to take a detour at the very least and for the next session and tell Boba Fett's story and call it the Book of Boba Fett. That totally works. I mean, maybe it'll get a logo, but it's not that hard to whip up a logo. They just debuted 2 new ones at the Investor Day, so why not have a logo here? Unless again, it's the Mandalorian logo, because technically he is a Mandalorian. I know it was up for debate yet again this episode, but he's wearing the armor. They stand next to each other. He would look totally cool on the poster. Also, we all know, many people have reported at this point, that Boba Fett has been filming, and this is the production slot that is used for Mandalorian to make its annual release date, sure enough, December 2021. Kathleen Kennedy at Investor Day said that that's when the next chapter of The Mandalorian was coming out. She didn't spend a lot of time on it, probably because of this reason. And then the next chapter, and then it was confirmed today that that's when the Boba Fett chapter debuts, the Book of Boba Fett. It debuts December 2021. Now, Kathleen Kennedy did say Christmas Day, and some of you are holding out hope that maybe the Boba Fett, Book of Boba Fett, will be at the beginning of December, and it will lead into the the Mandalorian season 3. That could happen. They haven't started shooting the Mandalorian season 3 yet. I think that it would be difficult to make that release date because of that. But, never say never. However, I think it's unreasonable to release 2 Star Wars shows in the exact same month. I mean, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you space them out? And there are so many shows coming down the pipeline. Why would you do back-to-back Mando? I mean, Boba Fett is shooting now. Cassian Andor also started shooting. Obi-Wan is just about to go into production. Mando season 3 with Pedro Pascal has not gone into filming. Doesn't even have a production start date. So it just doesn't make any sense. It makes it, pretty clear, in fact, that the Book of Boba Fett is either the Mandalorian season 3 or a season 2.5, which again is what I speculated last week when I told you that again the Pedro Pascal situation had not been resolved. And remember, I said that I hoped Din Djarin would just be sidelined and not killed so that he can come back at some point, and I got my wish, so I'm very happy about that. Now, since the Pedro Pascal situation has not been resolved, they've given his character a pause. No more Grogu by his side. His mission, the mission of the entire first 2 seasons, is now complete. However, they did give Din Djarin the Darksaber, which Bo-Katan really wants. She was glaring at him hardcore. And so she now, as the legend goes, she has to fight him for it. But she doesn't have a confirmed show just yet. So where would that fight happen? Din Djarin is a great character. I am sure that at some point, he will return. I think even Star Wars doesn't know exactly when that will be. Brandon Wayne today, some very hardcore, I'm glad that so many of you are supportive of Pedro Pascal. He's a fabulous actor. I absolutely adore him. I just said that he was the best thing in Wonder Woman 1984, MVP of the movie. But I think that, your time would be better spent telling Lucasfilm how much you love him so that they bring him back sooner. Brandon Wayne, who is one of the stand-ins for, he does some of the action sequences. He's the one wearing the armor, basically. He said, "Oh, don't worry, Pedro's definitely coming back." And it's wonderful, again, that he's supporting him. And of course he wants Pedro Pascal to come back, because if Din Djarin doesn't return, Brandon Wayne doesn't return, because he's playing the role simultaneously. So, and I'm telling you, I think that at some point, Din Djarin will return. But I think this is why in his recent interview, Pedro Pascal said he thinks that they should do whatever is best for the show and not we. And then also he recently suggested in an interview that he should totally show up on the Ahsoka show, which means he's not showing up on the Ahsoka show just yet. And he's campaigning already for his character to return, which he should totally do. But he doesn't have a set return date, and, good for him. Squeaky wheel gets the grease, as I always say, and there's an opportunity. And I really want to see him return, and we'll see what happens. Again, I know that Pedro Pascal left mid-filming, but he obviously did return to film some scenes, as evidenced by how dramatically different he looks in the 2 scenes where he takes his helmet off, which I think is also very interesting. And when Jon Favreau told Entertainment Weekly before season 2 started that the show would follow different people, it turns out he didn't mean within this season, he meant from season to season. I'm very clear when I'm giving you information, when I'm speculating, when I'm building on that information. And I was correct in my speculation that it would go, based on how things were unfolding, that it would go to Boba Fett. And it's unfortunate that a number of my haters and sloppy websites continually misquote me. But if you're getting it from me directly, I don't steer you wrong. So, and I appreciate how supportive some of you have been. As I tweeted, I play the long game. It's a very difficult game to play, but I really know, I trust, and I have tremendous faith in my sources who have proven themselves again and again, and I'm incredibly grateful that they work with me. And so, that's why I stood by the story. And, it didn't take as long as my Jeff Johns story to be proven true, but, you see what's unfolded. All right, so let's work our way through the episode. I thought it was funny at the beginning when that pilot from the Empire said, I don't have a death wish, but then he clearly did have a death wish. I was like, why are you trying to get Cara Dune to shoot you, man? She's totally going to shoot you. And he monologued, although nothing compared to how Moff Gideon monologued during this episode, but this guy's not Giancarlo Esposito. But I did like the stuff with Cara Dune quite a bit. I hope Rangers of the New Republic is her show, because I think that she's really developed to be very interesting. I think she does a fabulous job in the action sequences. I thought her Alderaan backstory and learning that the tear, what that means, her tear tattoo, I thought that was all really cool. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I did like also seeing Bo-Katan and I don't know what her character's name is, but Sasha Banks is Mandalorian, use their jetpacks and action sequences the way they did in the few episodes I've seen of the animated series. That was really cool too. All right, so anyway. I don't like the Dark Troopers. I hate the Dark Troopers, in fact. I think their design is super poor, like really poor. I'm like, they're supposed to have this tremendous force, but they don't look heavy at all to me. I'm like, that's super light plastic. And then also, and it's clearly plastic. I think they're obviously dudes in suits to save money. They're not fully animating those Dark Troopers. They have, I really feel that they're guys in suits, because just the way they move, it's just not right. And this was the one time, I can't believe I'm saying this. This is the one time I didn't like Ludwig Göransson's score. I think that every time they played the Dark Trooper music, it felt like a 90s music video, and they were like Backstreet Boys backup dancers. And also, what took them so long to reform, to regroup after being blown out of the airlock? Like 15 minutes or 10 minutes later, they're finally back. I mean, that should have been almost immediate. And then again, as I said, boy, did Moff Gideon monologue. He was like the champion monologuer. And also, he was like such a cartoon villain, like when he like put his cape over the gun. But I don't know. I like Giancarlo Esposito so much. Everything he does to me is fantastic. But I was like, why aren't you guys watching him more carefully? This is nuts. I wish that he did take that deal with Mando. When they had a deal for a moment, I was like, sounds good to me. And I was pretty annoyed. I can't believe that Moff Gideon's like, I know, you should assume that I know everything. And that was funny. But then he didn't obviously know about beskar steel, or he would have known that it was pointless. Or he would have tried to jab the Darksaber blade under Mando's helmet as his first strike when Mando's back was turned to him, instead of just whacking him with it. It was so ridiculous. So beskar steel, by the way, is amazing. And I thought that the spear versus the Darksaber was a really cool setup. And at moments you saw the potential of that fight. But again, it was just so poorly filmed. Peyton! Damn it! And then Grogu was awfully groggy. And I felt a little disappointed in that. I mean, I guess it's because they took a bunch of blood from him. But as this seems to be the last time we're going to see him for a while, it was not the way I wanted to see him go out. So I felt really bad. I felt as bad as Mando did seeing him being carried away, because I felt like he was being carried away from us too. And on that note, it was so weird and quite frankly mean that Mando couldn't go with Luke, R2D2, and Grogu. He's not doing anything. They could use a fourth, right? I mean, to me, it seemed like he should stick with him. I mean, it seemed pretty obvious. I've been saying he just needs a Jedi to join this group to train him while they go along. I mean, really, it feels like a business decision to split them up, because it just seems so nonsensical. What about all that talk from Ahsoka about the importance of a father figure, which everybody loved? That just goes out the window? I mean, I guess Luke's own father issues maybe blind him to that. Or maybe Luke's character is still being assassinated because he's just going to keep making huge mistakes. Oh, is this the only thing keeping you from going to the dark side? Let's yoink, split you apart. And speaking of Luke's mistakes, as everyone is pointing out, does this now mean that Grogu is killed with all the other Jedi at Luke's school years later by Ben Solo? Grogu survives one Jedi purging only to fall to another? That seems pretty mean too. Side note, some people are pointing out that Ben Solo actually didn't kill everybody. It was like, it was a misunderstanding, as the comic book has recently retconned, apparently. You can't retcon something. First of all, it's really uncool to be like, oh wait, this character is very popular. Let's totally undo it. I mean, he had a lot to atone for. Don't take away what he had to atone for. And then also, you can't retcon something in a comic book. This splinters the fandom. It's just not enough people are going to see it. So you can't retcon something that big. I mean, you can introduce characters in comics. You can, take smaller characters and maybe build them up there. But you can't retcon something that millions of people have seen in something that a significantly smaller amount of people are going to read. So I think that's ridiculous. But I think bottom line, no matter what might have happened at the school, if Luke trained Grogu, how could Grogu not have been featured in the Disney trilogy unless he was dead? I mean, that makes me not happy. I mean, it like seems to like put a very strong end date on Grogu, which is kind of a bummer, which I think also affected many of us when we watched the episode. You just are like, oh, well, I guess, Grogu's story is almost suddenly made finite instead of endless possibilities. And that kind of sucks. Like, why wouldn't Luke reach out to him? I mean, it was a pretty serious situation. He died. All right, so some will Luke did. So some will argue, and they talked about there being no more Jedi. Luke never said, well, actually, there's this adorable little guy out there. Why didn't Yoda reference him when he was a Force ghost and talking to Rey? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. All right, but although they've had to retcon so much in that original, the Disney trilogy, because Daisy Ridley admitted that they were literally making it up as they went along. So that's why it's not cohesive and doesn't hold together. So some will argue again that Din and Grogu's stories were done. But I gotta tell you, I didn't feel like they were done at all. I felt they had a lot of gas left in the tank. Thankfully, Din did say, you'll see me again. And we'll see when that is. It's almost as if Din said that to us too. Like, we'll see him again, and we'll find out when that is. So, I don't know. Taking Grogu and Din Djarin off the board is nuts to me. And again, it's so nuts that it has to be because of what I reported to you. There's no other explanation to do something that just seems so crazy. All right, so what are your thoughts? Share your thoughts down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.